Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We're continuing in what we learned yesterday from a book by the first Rebbe of Chabad, the leader of the Chabad movement. And that he wrote about 300 years ago, 250 years ago. And you might ask a question, so what is the importance of this? I guess if you're interested in Judaism, Hasidic Judaism, sort of strange Hasidic Judaism, this might interest you. But the fact is, this should really interest everybody in the world, because the Jews, after all, are a very strange people, very, very strange people. They're copied by a lot of religions. They're hated by a lot of religions. They're despised by some of the religions. Some of the religions, it's a basis of their religion is to hate the Jews. Strange basis for a religion, but there we go. And the Jews are going to, one of the reasons is because the Jews are going to produce this person called the Moshiach that's going to change everything. So people don't like this change so much. They don't, unless they really think they're personally going to get something out of it. So here we're trying to explain what exactly everybody's going to get out of this thing that Mashiach is going to come from. That's going to come from Mashiach. What's going to happen? And when you see the answer, so you understand sort of why people are very suspicious of the Jews, because they're going to bring this thing called revealing God in the world. Revealing God in the world. Now, this is a very strange idea to a lot of people. If you look at all the religions in the world, this is like an antithesis to reveal God in the world. I mean, that's like sort of idolatry. You can't put God in the world. If God is in the world, that's idolatry. Here you have Christianity, it's idolatry. It's a one whole 2.5 billion people. They all believe in, it's all idolatry. It's all that they believe a person is God. You can't do that. A person is not God. So what is God? What is God? If that's not God, then what is God? God is going to reveal himself. So God is not a person, maybe some sort of an angel. No, God creates the angels. So what does that mean then? That God is going to be revealed in the world. Maybe there's not going to be any more world anymore. What's going to happen? So the answer to that is that there was a holy temple, and the holy temple, when people went, they felt happy. Moadim l'simcha. They went there 3 times a year, and they felt happy. What do you mean they felt happy? They didn't come out with a big smile on their face. Everybody took some sort of drugs or something, and they came out in this euphoria. It means exactly the opposite. Everybody came back down to earth. Everyone felt that they're being created, and that they're being created for a purpose. And every instant is that purpose. And it's not a normal human purpose. It's God's purpose. And it could be just to do one good deed, think one good thought, say one good word, right? Something positive, doing something according to the Torah, honoring your parents, giving charity, having children, being honest. We have no idea what amazing importance this is. Every deed, everything that we do, this is in other religions, they call this heaven, right? You go to heaven after a person dies, so he sees the results of his good deeds. Right? Sees the results. This is a thing, in a way, it's sort of incomprehensible, because we live in this world in totally different standards. In this world, a person becomes famous, he becomes big, he becomes rich. That's really important. That's like the goal of life, to be a big rock star, to have, necklaces and cars and money in the bank. That's the meaning of life. People little by little are starting to realize that that's not really exactly the meaning of life. You have all these things, and you have victory, and you have the success, and you have fame. It doesn't really do it. Okay, so you can realize that you're making a mistake, but what's bad? But what is good? So now in the world, there's a whole new thing that says there's no such thing. There's no such thing as good. Good is like whatever you want. That's good. Whatever you want is good. I remember in the 60s, I was not religious in the 60s. So in the like in the 60s, it was a similar movement, but not as destructive. People weren't making operations to change their sex. Why a person would want to do that, I have absolutely no idea. Anyway, it's a sickness, a terrible disease, but still back then there was this big thing about do what you want, make love, not war. And it really worked for a while until all of a sudden there were people said, I don't like all this goody stuff. What I want is, to fight, just to get in a fight and get punched and punch people out. And then just the whole thing just fell apart. Because what can you say to a person like that? You can't do it. You're infringing on my rights. You're infringing on my rights. I want to fight. Right? That's my pleasure. Oh, you can't stop me from my. Anyway, whatever it is, to realize what's bad and how people are making mistakes, it just goes around in a circle. What is good? What is good? So here we see the Jewish people made this mistake that everybody's making. And they thought that good is what feels good. What feels good. And because of that, the first temple was destroyed and the second temple was destroyed. The Jews don't want to be God's people. They don't want to bring this feeling into the world that everybody is precious and everyone's important and everyone's made in the image of God. You can look at a person, see the image of God, and that it's very nice ideas, but it means you have to really change yourself. You have to change it. So because of that, the temple was destroyed. First temple, and the second temple was destroyed. And God punished the Jews, and he sent all these prophets and etc. He sent the Jews. And people, instead of that, they opt out for idolatry and for all these crazy things. But what is the truth? How can we fix it up? How can we fix this terrible situation up that there's finally in the world peace and prosperity and meaning? That's the main thing, meaning. And everybody feels they got this great, amazing gift from God called responsibility. God gave each person responsibility to make the world a better place, every person, according to the Torah. So how do we fix up the world? So that's what it says over here. This is the end of this week's Torah portion, the Haftorah, by Isaiah. And Isaiah, this is the beginning of the book of Isaiah. Look, open the book of Isaiah. Here it is, the first chapter, up to like the 27th sentence or something. And here's the last sentence, sentence number 27. Is it 27? I think so. Let me have a look over here. 1 minute. Don't go away. Yes, 27. Tzion b'mishpat tepara v'shaveh b'tzedakah. He's telling the Jews, this is right before the destruction of the first temple. Jews, you're terrible, you're awful, there's incorrigible. We've tried everything we can. You keep making the same stupid mistakes, and you're proud of it, and you're going against God, and God sent me to tell you, come on, fix up your ways and this, and it's going to be really bad for you, and you're going to be scattered all over the world. But Tzion b'mishpat tepara v'shaveh b'tzedakah. The Jewish people, or Israel, with judgment, with justice, Torah, with Torah will be redeemed. V'shaveh, and those which were taken in prison, or those the imprisoned ones, but tzedakah with commandments, with charity. You want to fix the world up, right? What do you have to do? If you invent a new the drug, invent a new idea, a new philosophy, do what you want. Well, what are you supposed to do? It says the way that the world will be fixed up is when the Jews return to the Torah and to doing good deeds, commandments. Well, that's not so hard. It says 1 second. But you have to that's what you do. What about how you do it? Okay, so how you do it, that's a little bit more difficult. So that means you have to get reoriented over here. So the Rebbe said, I'm just going over what we learned yesterday. So the Rebbe says like this. It says in Shema, we're supposed to say Shema twice a day. It's a sentence. We'll see next week's Torah portion. It's the motto of Judaism. Listen, Jews, God is our God, God is one. Look over there what Rashi says. He explains. He says, listen, Jews, God is our God. Right now, God, the creator of the universe, he's only ours. Only the Jews believe in him. Some of the Jews, at least. A couple of the Jews. They believe in the creator of the universe. But that's Hashem Elokeinu. Hashem Echad. God is one. Eventually, the whole world will believe in him. Look in Rashi. There's And the translation is in English. Eventually, the whole world will worship God. Only the Creator. They won't worship people. They won't worship spirits. They won't worship levels and consciousness. And they'll worship only the Creator who gave the Torah, who's giving the Torah. So that's what he says. It says right after we say this motto of Judaism, in the same paragraph, or right in the same, listen, Jews, God is our God, God is one. It says you should love God with all of your heart, with all of your might, with all of your soul, with all of your might. Then it says like this, and it will be these words that I'm saying, that I'm commanding you today, should be on your heart. What are these words? This is the Torah. The Torah should be on your heart today. Every day they have to be brand new. How can they be brand new? It says, oh, this is the point. This is the point. The Torah has to be brand new. The Torah is the power that makes the world brand new, fresh. We have to feel that the Torah is today, like it was given today by God, brand new Torah. It says when the Moshiach comes, there's going to be a brand new Torah. Everyone will feel this Torah, that the Torah is brand new. That's what they'll feel. It doesn't mean any word of the Torah will be changed or altered. So it says, okay, God put the soul into the world, right? Just going over what we said yesterday. God put the soul into the world. Why did he do it? In order to elevate the soul. The Jewish soul. It says, 1 minute. The Jewish soul before it came into this world was higher than the angels. It was up in God's thought. How could it possibly be that the soul comes down here in order to be elevated? What does that mean? So it says that the soul, before it was put into the world, comes from this level of tahora. It was pure. And then it also says that that's where the soul came from. But when it comes into the world, into the body, it says, Ata Meshamra B'kir. But this is a sentence that we say first thing in the prayers. It says, the soul that you put into me was pure. You created it, you formed it, you blew it into me, and you protect it. You keep it inside of me. This thing of protecting the soul inside of me, this comes from even a higher level. And the purpose, what God has, what he's keeping us in this world for, that's what keeps pushing the soul into the body, because the soul in its nature, in its essence nature, wants to leave the world. It wants to be one with God, like it was before it was born. It's just the reason that the soul is in the world is in order to praise God, to surrender to God, and to make blessings. That's what we said yesterday. Praising God means that you're aware that God is totally incomprehensible, that he's above the angels, that God is infinitely real, and we are just his creations, and God is creating us. Our reality comes from his reality, and that God is infinitely good, and God is creating all of the upper worlds. That means we can't comprehend God. We just surrender. But we also say that we should make blessings. What does it mean that we should make blessings? That we have to reveal this reality of God in the world. Baruch Hashem min olam v'ad olam. To reveal this fact in the world. That's what God wanted. Why God wanted it this, I don't know, but that's what he wanted. Right? You don't, that's it. If it wasn't that he wanted that, we wouldn't be existing now. Which some people might say that's a good thing. But the fact is that here we are. So if we are here, so God knows what he's doing. So we have to make the most of it. How do we make the most of it? If we could just reveal the source, the reason of our being here every instant, then that would make things a lot easier. If we knew that we're not alone, and we really felt it, and we knew and we really feel that God is with us, and that everybody knows and feels it, then that makes the world a very interesting place. Excuse me. That makes the world an interesting place. It makes the world a godly place. That's the job of the Jews, is to make blessings in the world. To make God, the Creator, revealed in the creation. To make every instant very, 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 very meaningful. And that's what it means, a blessing. Okay. But in order to do this, okay, now it gets a little bit more difficult, is you have to love God. Surrendering to God is wonderful, but you have to have love, appreciation. Surrender is great, wonderful, but it's not enough. You have to have love. It's like, you have a book that says how to raise a family. So it teaches you over there how to treat your wife, how to treat your children, and everything you do is according to the book. You don't do anything that you want personally. Says chapter 1, never get mad. Okay, what should you do instead of getting mad? Say nice things. I like you. You are a good person. I love you. I believe in you. Okay, so that's what you do. You look in the book, and your wife really gets you angry one day, just tremendously angry. She keeps yelling at you all the time. So you think, what am I going to do? You want to get the book, and you say, I love you. I like you. So, okay, you're doing what it says. You're not doing anything wrong. Right? To the kids, you say, you are my son. You are my daughter. You are smart. You are really great. I love you. So you do these things without any feeling. So, okay, you're not doing anything wrong. You're not yelling at him. You're not beating him. You're not, yelling back at your wife. You're not doing it. You're doing what's right, but you're not doing it the way that it's right. You're not appreciating anything. Love means that you find something good in the other person, or in this case, in God. You find something good that you really, lights you up. This is really valuable, right? You're walking down the street and you find like a $100 bill laying on the, first you think maybe it's a trick, maybe it's not. Then you think, listen, maybe it fell down from somebody. Maybe I can get, who did it fell down from, right? And you look and see it's genuine. Genuine. Oh, very nice, right? And someone comes over and says, did you just find a $100 bill? Oh yeah, does it belong to you? Yeah, could you give it back? Sure, here. You're really giving me this money back? Yes, I am. Sure, here, take. Well, I made it up my mind. Whoever gives me this $100 bill back, I'm going to give him $100,000. Here's a check for you, right? Certified check. He says, ooh, this is really valuable, huh? He says, wow, I really like you. This is really, thank you very much. It's when you see something valuable, your whole emotions start changing. You have love. You feel good, especially if you needed that money, right? You had to have that money to buy a new house, to make an operation for your grandmother or something like that. And you get them, oh, thank you. The same thing to love. Love, you have to love God. What do you got to love God about? You don't see him. He gave me money. He gave me something. What are you talking? I have to work for my money. I have to work. God didn't give me anything. I have to work for my money. I have to wake up in the morning. I have to open the job. I have to do this. I have to do the whole thing. What am I supposed to love God about? This is, think about it a little bit. Think about it. You have to think. And that's Shema Yisrael, we said before. Shema Yisrael. Shema means understand. This is where we get from that Chassidut Chabad. You have to have Chabad Chassidut because that teaches you how to think about God. Shema Yisrael means understand. It's the motto of Judaism that Jews should understand God. Shema Yisrael, Jews understand that God is our God and that God is one. What does that mean? Think about it, learn about it. After that, there's Baruch Shem Kavod Malchut Olam V'ed. We say after that, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchut Olam V'ed, that the name should be blessed. The name of the glory of the kingship of God should be blessed forever and ever. That's what you're supposed to think about. What's there to think about? Oh, you have to learn. You have to learn that there's a lot to think about over here. Tremendous amount. This is to opening up the key to what's behind this, veneer, which is called the world. Did you know the world is being created? Yes. Did you know the world is being created for a purpose? I don't know exactly. Do you know that the Creator is revealing himself in the world? Do you know that what we're seeing of the Creator in this world is a picture of a picture of a picture? That's what the name of the glory of the kingship. And if we would see only this little tiny hair strand, whatever godliness, we would just totally freak out. We would just totally It's too much. So we have to even make it smaller and smaller in order that we can just even the idea that God is creating us. When this idea, the Mashiach is going to reveal this to the whole world. When the whole world realizes this, they're going to drop all the religions. Everybody says, I really believed in this, right? In these religions. Here's the oneness of God. God is creating me right now. That's what you're supposed to believe in. Perish Kihini, Abriya, the creation. What do we think here? The Rebbe is going to tell us what to think about. Ready? Let's go. This is what to think about in order to fix up the world. Think about it. It depends on your thoughts. Your thoughts first. Then after that, what you say and what you do, that's important. But thinking is tremendously important because thinking arouses your heart, right? Thinking arouses your heart. Ki, because hine, behold, abriya, the creation, who yesh miayin, is something from nothing. Perish, like it says, kamosh kasuv, baruch shem kavod malchut olam va'ed, like we say, that blessed is the name, Shem, these are abbreviations. The name of the honor, the glory of the kingship. Shebechilot malchus, this idea of kingship, this is called melech aleim, that God is a king over us. She'enu bechinas atzmis, this is not God's essence. Hua machaya kol olmos. This aspect of God, which is not the essence of God, and it's not even the name of the essence of God, and it's not even the glory of the name of God. It's the kingship, this aspect of kingship, the Lord, a king. How does a king rule over the country? He writes edicts, he sends out letters. The king doesn't come out himself and say, okay, you're in the army, build this road, cut down that tree. The king doesn't do it. He writes a letter and he says, this is what I want. This city should be built over here. Right? It doesn't go out himself. Sometimes maybe to make a war, he goes on himself. Sometimes the king's birthday or something, he comes out to the public. But generally speaking, not. That's the kingship. That's like the lowest aspect of the king is his kingship, how he rules over the country. But the king himself sits on a throne high up. Nobody gets to see him. This is the same thing as how God creates the world. God creates the world from his kingship. This aspect of God's kingship, this is the lowest aspect of God that there is. God is a king. This is not God's essence that enlivens all the worlds, upper worlds and lower. That's kingship. There's even something lower. This is even below. This is God's dictatorship. This is even lower than God's kingship. Shu Moshel Bar Korchak, a dictator, he rules, how do you say, but by force, against everybody's will. Shelo b'tovatan, even if people don't want it, he rules. V'hu chitzonius midas malchus, this is the outside of God's kingship. Right? This comes from the Psalm of King David. Right? Malchuscha malchus kolim, umemshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. Memshaltecha. So the kingship of God, that's the external. Says there's something even more external. This is what's called God's dictatorship. This is what's creating all the worlds. This is what's enlivening all the worlds. And every single generation and generation, there's certain generations that they were evil, like the generation of the flood. Shelo kiblu, that they didn't accept God's kingship. And nevertheless, they were alive. They lived. They were alive. How does God enliven Hitler and all these people? How does he enliven it? He says God has his plans. He keeps everything alive, but he keeps it alive in a way that it's even things that are exactly the opposite of what he wants. It's the ultimate concealment of God. Chayas, I don't know if you ever read. I read in university. I remember we read a couple of speeches of Hitler, and he invoked God. He said it is God's will that the German people should rule the world. God's will. I mean, he had a point. He had a point that God is creating him also. God is creating all the evil. How is God creating all this? It says this is from the God's aspect, which is called dictatorship. It's so to speak, totally removed from God's essence. Look at dictators. They weren't dictators. You got Stalin, you got this guy Chavez or whatever. Usually, dictator, he destroys his whole country. A dictator, he destroys the whole country. It's the opposite of what the country wants, so to speak. Same thing with God. God creates people that want to destroy the whole world. Why does it? That's all. We cannot understand what's going on. But the fact is, God is creating everything. All of the worlds, the upper worlds. This is what you're supposed to think about. God is creating everything all the time. God is enlivening everything all the time. Every bug, every tree, right? Every planet. Then what about, that's the physical worlds. What about all the spiritual worlds? All the worlds that are the upper worlds, Gan Eden and Tachton, the lower, what's called the lower heaven. The lower heaven, after a person dies, right, he goes what's called the lower heaven. That's called the world of Yetzirah. Shehu, Tainug, Nifla, intense pleasure. If you take all the pleasures of this world with all the drugs and the success and whatever, all the pleasures you could possibly have in this world, rolled up together, it's absolutely nothing compared to 1 second of pleasure in the world to come. Until the rabbis say, Mutav le'daine, it's worth it for a person to go to hell, which says the pains of hell are like 70 times as bad as all the pain in this world. It's worthwhile to go to hell and suffer all this pain in order just to go to heaven, the lower heaven. That's the lower level of heaven. What about the upper level of heaven? Oh, that makes the upper level of heaven makes the lower level of heaven like playing in a sandbox. There's the upper level of heaven. That's in pleasure. We got no idea what pleasure it is. The Eish Odelios, and there's also elevations higher and higher without any end. All of these were created only from God's kingship. Yisbarich. Going to heaven is like a cartoon before the main feature. Nothing. What are you talking about? Even more. Going to heaven is like, buying popcorn in the the main thing, you're going to see this amazing movie, whatever it is, the 10 Commandments, something like that, a 20-hour movie. It's fantastic. All the actors in the world, it's enjoyment. You've never had such enjoyment in your life, right? And that's like the lower heaven, the upper heaven. The lower heaven is like the popcorn you buy. These levels of pleasure compared to the little bit of pleasure we have in this world is nothing. So it's worthwhile to live to go to the heaven, right? He says, yeah, you got a good point. But the fact of the matter is that's absolutely nothing compared to being connected to the creator of the whole business, the creator of heaven and earth. Think about it. And the creator of heaven and earth is creating you and me and all the world. And the angels and the animals. Just the animals, they can't appreciate it, but human beings can appreciate it. But the Jewish people are commanded to think about this. Shema Yisrael. And when the Jewish people think about this, what God is, and this is the same God that's giving the Torah. The Torah comes from God's essence. But we'll get to that in a second. And therefore, Nikra Bria, therefore the creation is called something from nothing. Why is the creation called something from nothing? What, God is nothing? Because he's Tabus and Nivroim, because the creation of the worlds, is from a level of what we said is God's name, God's glory, God's kingship, God's dictatorship. The creation of the world comes from this level, which is like nothing compared to God's essence. So even the heavens, which are incredible pleasure, that comes from the lowest of aspects of God. The heavens, that's just the creation. That's not the creator. The creator is infinitely incomparable to anything in the creation. And this is the God that's creating me and you. This is the God that we actually can appreciate and love. And the whole worlds, all the worlds, people go crazy to go to heaven, right? They're promised to go to heaven. They made crusades and they made this and they killed each other for a war, a holy war. You're going to go to heaven and you're going to kill the other guy. You'll go to twice heaven, right? Whatever, amazing pleasures you're going to get. Says the Rebbe, okay, but that's very selfish. And not only that, it's very, how do you say, very nothing. I'm reminded. This popped into my mind. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I used to have a Chabad house, right? I had a Chabad house. And one of the big things of the year was I used to make a parade, a Lag BaOmer parade. And the parade would end up in usually this big park. There would come like 1,000 children. It was really beautiful. And Lag BaOmer is the day that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai passed away. Anyway, it's a big holiday in Israel, especially. So the kids would come, we'd make this big thing, and we would say sentences from the Torah and sing and dance, and someone would say a story, someone would say an idea, and then we would have a raffle. We would have a raffle. What's this got to do with this? I'll tell you in a second. We'd have a raffle. So these kids, a lot of them, they came from poor families. They were poor families. And so we raffled off a bicycle, a BMX bicycle, one bicycle. The bicycle cost, I don't know, $100. It drew 1,000 kids. Every kid thought he was going to win this bicycle. I have a lot of stories about this. We had a lot of other prizes, but this was the big prize. And so what happened was we passed out lottery tickets. Passed out lottery tickets to the kids, that every kid would get one ticket. But I didn't pass them all out. I had there were girls that won among the girls and boys won among the boys. I had people helped me. They helped me out. Counselors. And so they went on. Unbeknownst to me, the mothers of these kids were grabbing these, give me another one for my son, my daughter, give me 3. No, I didn't get yet. They would come back and get more and more and more. No, you didn't give it to me. You gave it to somebody else. No, somebody took it from me. Anyway, finally in the end, so there were like 1,000 kids, and we had given out 10,000 tickets. How could it be? There's like 1,000 kids. It says because every mother would take like 10 tickets. They would grab, 10 tickets for like each kid. They would grab it. And they would grab and where would they put it? They would put it in their their bosom. They would put a stick in it. Anyway, so finally we came out. So every mother had some mothers only took 1. So it means some of them took 20, some of them took 30. So they had all these, Okay, so I stood up and I said, okay, now we're going to pick a number out. The number is 357. So all these mothers are feverishly sticking their hands down their dresses, and trying to take out these things secretly because they don't want anybody to know that they have all these things. So all these numbers, it was just too much for them. It was too good. They had too many numbers and they couldn't do anything with all the numbers. So some women had 50 numbers. They're trying to look through and open them up and find out. And then no, it's the same thing like the revelations of heaven. It's just too much. You just can't take the revelation in this world. And that's only the lower heaven. The upper heaven is infinitely greater level of pleasure. It says, but the fact of the matter is all of these worlds, as pleasurable as they are, they're created by God, but such a low level of what God is that it's called nothing. That the level from which all the worlds come, all these heavenly worlds come, right? The levels of worlds we can't appreciate. They're so tremendously good, like these ladies with 100 tickets. It's just too much. Ka'ayin ve'efes, all these worlds, even the upper worlds, is like nothing compared to the essence of God. The God which creates the world, this is just like a little ray. V'hu b'chines u'midas malchus. So this is what we call God's kingship. Look at another place. The Rebbe tells you another place to look more of an explanation. But Gamzo, then also this is not how, from the essence of God that's creating the essence of God's kingship. This essence of God's kingship, it also doesn't reveal itself in full force. This just stands above them from above. B'bechinas makif, in a surrounding way. Something like now, life. Everybody's alive, right? You're alive, I'm alive. You have any idea what that means? You're alive. Nobody knows what it means. Right? A person dies, that's it. Right? A person dies with gets drowns. God forbid, a person drowns. So his whole body is whole. Everything is whole, right? The guy drowned, half an hour ago. God forbid. His whole body is complete. Nothing is broken. That's it. He's dead. You can't put his soul back. Why? Who knows? A soul is totally incomprehensible, and everybody has one. So that's like sort of around us. And says the Rebbe, that's how God enlivens the whole world. Even the heavens, the highest levels of heavens, is created, is enlivened and created by God's kingship, and it doesn't really go inside of them. They don't really appreciate it. Like it says, Melech Asher Shemo Nikra, only God's name. That's what we said, the glory of God's name, of his kingship. But all this is because of Seder Ishtalshalos. All of this comes in the order of creation. That's all these Kabbalah books talk about, right? All these different worlds of God and the permutations of God's letters and and this is creating the worlds of the upper worlds. But this is especially relevant to the upper worlds. But this world, we have something that none of the other worlds have. We have people. And people have free will. And free will is something that turns the whole entire business around. Because this physical world is the lowest of 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 the worlds. There's no revealed godliness at all. In heaven, even though it's just a ray of godliness, whatever, but at least the angels appreciate this. In this world, we don't appreciate anything. We're the lowest possible, even in hell. Hell is a revelation of God. It's God punishes people for what they did bad. But at least it's, in this world, you think you're God. In this world, you think that there's no God. I'm God. I do what I want. I created myself. In this world, the lowest of the possible worlds, but this world is also the highest because it has what's called tshuva. Tshuva means to return. A person in this world has a soul. It's a very big miracle. God put the soul in the body, and especially here we're talking about the Jews. And the Jewish soul yearns for God. That's called the godly soul. It yearns for God, wants to be connected to God. And when a person comes in contact with this and he chooses of his own free will to follow these urges to be unified with God, and being unified with God means that you do what God wants. God wants you to be in the world. He wants us to be here. That's called tshuva. That means returning to consciousness. You return to your responsibility, that God put you in the world for. When a Jew returns to that responsibility, why he's in the world, like God put, all of a sudden, the whole thing turns up. Whoop. This world becomes higher than all the other worlds. By means of tshuva, by means of return and doing good deeds. Yochal Lahamshich can reveal Gilui Atzmus Ein Sof, the essence of God, higher than the angels in this world. That was the whole thing of the Holy Temple. But Ozos, and even more, Yasim Al Libo, so you reveal the Creator, not just the Creator, but the reason why the Creator is creating the world is in order that we will do what he wants. And even though it seems to be a very simple thing, but very few people, if anybody, does it. So therefore, you should put on your heart that in the world to come, after a person dies, you cannot change things. You cannot elevate yourself only badraga, only in the way that God sets for you. It's called kafakela, gehenom, gan eden, tachton, nahar dinor. It says that there's the lower heaven, hell, the lower heaven, the river of fire that takes you between one heaven and the other one. So then there's Gan Eden Elyon, the upper heaven, all these different levels that there are. Kamishpat Aroy, the way the God decides. Lefi Shehumi Bechinas Mamali, because the upper worlds, the spiritual worlds, that's what we call Mimali Kolmim. It's in an orderly fashion. Like I said before, that's what the Kabbalah books talk about. They talk about these levels of godliness. The levels of godliness from world to world, from level to level, the aspects of God, the eyes of God, the nose of God, the mouth of God, what happens, etc. In this world, to go from one world to the other world, the elevations from one world to the other. That's all spiritual stuff of a ba'olam hazeh, but this physical world, yochel ishtanot, you can change things min hakatzeh el hakatzeh, from one end to the other, miyad, immediately, correct, one instant. Even a person that, let's take a Jew, here the Rebbe is talking to Jews, but eventually it'll be the whole world. Even a Jew that never learned Kabbalah, and he never learned Torah, and he did sins his whole life, God forbid, and he didn't, nothing, but all of a sudden, 1 minute, he decides, hey, I am a creation of God. I regret everything I've done bad in the past. I made a big mistake. From now on, it's going to be that one moment that he decides, one instant, until there's a law. This is a very strange law. It says like this: if I marry a woman, I go to a woman, I say, "You are married to me," and she says, "But I only want to get married to somebody rich." You say, "Oh, I'm rich. I have $1 million in the bank," right? So she says, "Okay, we are married on the condition that you have $1 million in the bank." Yes, I said, "Yes, we are married on the condition that I have $1 million in the bank." Good. Mazel tov, wonderful. And then you look in the bank, the guy hasn't got any money in the bank. He's got money. Well, I have I want to have $1 million in the bank. That's not enough. The whole thing is annulled. The marriage never took place in the beginning, nothing. Let's say the lady says, same lady, she says, "Listen, I've changed my mind. I realize the fortunes of this world are nothing. I want to get married only to someone who's a tzaddik, a totally holy Jew." Oh, that's me. That's me. I'm a holy Jew. I'm totally holy. Tzaddik. I only do good. I never do bad. Never did bad. I am totally one, united with the Lord, with the Creator, 100%. I mean, says, "Okay, we're married. Mazel tov." They check the guy out. They say, "What about the Shmerel Grois?" Shmerel Grois, a terrible person. Don't even mention his name. But he's not a tzaddik. A tzaddik. Maybe a different Shmerel Grois, but not him. He's a terrible person. Worst guy in the world. Liar, cheater, disgusting, doesn't do commandments, does absolutely nothing. No, she comes back and says, "Another time you fooled me. We're not married." I said, "Oh yeah? Let's go to the rabbi and see." "What's there to see? I just went and asked about you. You didn't do." Goes to the rabbi. The rabbi said, "Well, could be you're married. Could be you're married. There's a big doubt over here. Officially, you're married." Why? He says, "Because maybe he had a thought. When he married you, he had a thought that, you know what, I really am going to change my ways. I know what it means. I'm going to change." At that thought, at that minute that he thought, it could be he lapsed back. But at that thought, it made him, it says, even the law is, a Kaddish is Isha, a person who gets married to a woman, almanat, on the condition, shu tzaddik gomor, that he's a complete tzaddik, mikudesh, she's married to him. Afilu Rasha Gomer, even if he's a totally bad person. Why? Shemer Hiru Tshuva, because maybe he thought a thought of repentance. Hainu mipanei sheyesh ha'arat sovev, because in this world, if you make a choice that you want to serve God, then that activates an aspect of God's essence. Sovev ka'olmin. God's essence, that's what the rabbis say. It's better one moment doing tshuva and doing good deeds in this world than all of the pleasures of the world to come. That's what it means, mirov kol. It says that the Jewish people will get punished because they did not serve God with happiness. Mirov kol, more than rov kol. We should be happy to serve God more than all the pleasures of the world to come. Therefore, a person will love God with all of his soul. But Mesirut Nefesh, willing to give your soul and not just giving your body alone. But tachlit lahamshich ein sof baruch hu asoviv lamata. Right? You go to people in the street and you say, "Okay, anyone who puts on tefillin gets a $100 bill." People will come and they'll do it. A lot of people will come and they'll do it. Right? A lot of people will come and put on tefillin. Sure. What's talking about? There's no doubt about it. If you say put on tefillin, you're going to go to heaven. So people that believe in heaven, they'll say, "Okay, why not? I'll take a chance." You say, put on tefillin and you'll be attached to the creator of the universe. Will people do it? Well, the fact is people do it. I go out every Friday. I don't tell people that that's what I say, come put on tefillin, and people that are not religious, put on tefillin, they stop in the middle of the street and they put on tefillin because they know that they're not going to receive heaven and they're not going to receive any rewards, and I'm not going to give them any money, but they know that they're attaching themselves to the essence of God. And they have no idea what it means, and I have no idea what it means, but they know that it's true. You're doing the truth because it's the truth. When a person does what God wants, that draws down what's called soviv, the essence of God below. That's by means of Torah and the commandments. That's why the soul comes into the body. That answered our questions. This is what's going to bring the future redemption. when Jews just return to the truth. Right? They serve the Creator. That's what it says. That's what it says after we say Shema Yisrael. It says that these words, you should love God with all of your heart, and these words that I am commanding you should be today on your heart. Today. That's the question we asked. How can the Torah, how can the Torah be brand new every day? Because I am mitzavacha. I am commanding you. The word mitzavacha means I'm attaching you. A mitzvah means to be attached. God Himself is making the Torah brand new every day. It's not, all we have to do is decide. That's what's in our hands, the decision. But God is doing the attachment. He is attaching Himself. Not just from God's name, of His glory, of His honor. But God Himself personally is giving the Torah and the commandments from His essence today, davka, today, and not tomorrow in the world to come. That's what it says. These words should be brand new today. That's what we asked in the beginning of the Mimer. So we say on Shema Yisrael, these words should be on your heart today. That I command you today, they should be on your heart. Why today? Because God is making it from His essence right now, brand new. When a person thinks about this, the kol yom, every day, then it will be really, the Torah will really be brand new. Because hayom, today, in this world, you're able to draw down the essence of God by doing the Torah, which is not the case in heaven, as we're going to talk about, God willing, more tomorrow. Go back to this tomorrow. Beautiful, beautiful, amazing, incredible.